I certainly wouldn't stick around just to have it on the resume.
Yeah.
Right? The point of doing this work is not to pad your resume. The point of doing this work is to make connections and learn and like actually be building a career. Hello and welcome to episode 511 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Nathan Fox. With me is Ben Olson. We are the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. First item on the agenda is a story from Karen Sloan in Reuters. The title is Artificial Intelligence is Now an A+ Law Student. Study finds. Just from the headline alone, Ben, are you surprised to hear that?
No.
Not in the slightest. I would be surprised if AI could practice law. It most certainly cannot. But getting A's on exams, if that's what this is about, that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. You want to read a little bit of this, just snippets from this story?
Yeah, certainly. Karen Sloan writes, OpenAI's newest model called O3 earned grades ranging from A+ to B on 8 spring finals given by faculty at the University of Maryland, Francis King Carey School of Law. Researchers found in a new paper published on SSRN. I don't know what that is. Anyways.
It's a research thing. It's just where research papers get published. Big database. Interesting that this is University of Maryland, Matt and Becca's beloved alma mater.
Yeah. She continues, those high grades represent a significant improvement from previous studies done on earlier versions of ChatGPT, also from OpenAI, which scored B's, C's, and even 1D. 1Ds? When researchers had them take law school finals in 2022 and 2023, according to the paper. Wow. I mean, yeah, it's not surprising at all to me, in part because law school exams often are just a matter of seeing how many issues you can spot.
Oh, absolutely.
And ChatGPT has got to be the king or queen of spotting issues.
Not only that, but professors, they gloss the grading of the exams. At least mine did. I mean, I don't know if you had the same experience in law school, Ben, but my experience in law school, like I got my exams back and all it had was like 3 check marks just right down the middle of the page. Check, check, check.
Yep.
Turn the page. Uh-oh, only 2 check marks. Turn the page. Ooh, I got 4 check marks on this page.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the professor was doing was like giving you a point for every valid, like everything you spotted and talked about semi-intelligently.
Yep.
And I never received substantive feedback on any of my exams. I mean, I couldn't have less respect for the educational experience of law school, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it just was absurd. It was very obvious that this guy, I'm thinking of this torts professor because I think it was the first exam I ever got back, but it was just very clear to me that he had a stack of exams, grading them over Christmas break. He's on his like 4th glass of wine and he's just going through and putting check marks on the page and then just spitting back to you, oh, B+.
Yeah.
Well, of course, ChatGPT is going to completely crush an exam in that format.
Yep.
Like students refer to them as racehorse exams, which I don't know if it's in the agenda today, but I was just hearing about the wild proliferation of extra time accommodations at Pepperdine School of Law.
Oh.
Yeah. Students are mad about it because they're talking about how, hey, this exam is what we call, like everyone refers to it as a racehorse exam.
Yeah.
Where it's known in advance that we're not going to be able to finish the exam.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is, you're calling it probably an issue spotting exam.
Yeah.
The idea is we're just going to spot as many issues as we can. We're going to write out as much as we can. And sometimes you even get credit for just writing an outline instead of writing out the like prose.
Yeah.
You just write out bullets of what you would talk about if you had more time to flesh it out. And sometimes if the other stuff is good enough, you can get full credit for those bullets.
Hmm.
Anyway, it's something like half the students at Pepperdine now are getting extra time accommodations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Maybe,
That's
maybe,
insane.
maybe it's not quite that high, but
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's definitely over a third. And it's,
Wow.
yeah, and it's way harder to get those same accommodations on the California bar exam.
Mm.
So we now see, some like down the road consequences
Yeah.
of being so freewheeling about the accommodations that we give on the LSAT.
Yeah.
And then those carry over into law school. And then you get to the California bar, and the California bar is like, no,
Yep.
sorry, sue us. We're a bunch of lawyers.
Yeah.
We can't do that. Anyway,
Well,
back to ChatGPT.
you can understand why people do that because law school
sure.
is so incredibly competitive. And if you can get those accommodations, you start to feel stupid not getting them.
Right. Which I'm sure is what's been going on at Pepperdine. Yeah. I mean, presumably there will be some backlash against this. Like reasonable accommodations that make sense. Okay, that's one thing. But then when everybody is just blatantly abusing those accommodations, that's a different story. ChatGPT,
Yeah.
obviously, is going to completely crush this type of an exam.
Yep.
I will say that lawyers that are not already learning how to use these tools, you're a fool. Like, you will get destroyed in the future if you don't learn how to use these tools.
100%. I mean, at the very least, right? An attorney today should take any argument that they're trying to make in writing, give it to ChatGPT and say, hey, is there anything here that I'm missing? Is there anything here that I should add to this argument? Now, ChatGPT might give you 7 stupid ideas, but 2 good ones or 1 good one, and you add that to your case, and it's what convinces the judge that your side is right. It would be foolish not to have included it.
Well, and you're a fool if you like, I think what happens a lot is people tried ChatGPT in 2002 or 2003. It hallucinated a couple things and they said, oh, yeah, nah, this doesn't work. But you need to try it again in 2005. And you need to be open to it as a brainstorming partner at the very least, because you can just upload whole documents into it. It can then read those documents instantly and give you 50 ideas. If that's not helpful to you, then I don't know what you think you're doing, but it's just like, it's amazingly useful. And here, not only is it amazingly useful, but it's good enough that an actual law professor is going to give the output an A+.
Yeah.
Like, this was the best work anyone in my whole class was able to submit.
Yeah.
Presumably they use double blind and all that here.
Hopefully. Yeah.
It is a research paper. So I'm hoping that this was just submitted amidst all the other students' exams. And, these professors are just looking at the work and they're going, hey, out of 8 spring finals. So it's as if GPT, by the way, was in 8 classes. Took all the finals. It probably took each final in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it earned a range from A+ to B. B actually is probably like middle, maybe even bottom half of the class. But an A+, wait, oh no, the curve is 2.7, huh?
Yeah.
At most law schools. Yeah, okay, so never mind. So actually above the curve in every class and top of the class in some instances. Of course, you can go wrong, and we do see headlines about lawyers continuing to use ChatGPT to write their briefs for them.
Well, that's just stupidity, right? Like, to rely on it 100% and take no time whatsoever to review the work product that you're going to submit with your name on it. That's dumb. But
yeah, and extremely risky, and it's something that will be increasingly, I think, sanctioned by courts. If you continue to do that, the courts are going to be increasingly mad about this.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me at all, though, that it can ace bogus law school exams. Next item on the agenda.
Yeah, this is from Jake. The subject is unknown unknowns.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I think Donald Rumsfeld's quote on the lack of evidence about WMDs in Iraq is, funnily enough, an apt way of thinking about LSAT knowledge. The quote, This was former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld under George W. Bush.
George W. Bush,
in the wake of 9/11.
Mm-hmm. I
wrote-
remember this. I remember.
Yeah,
I
me
think
too. Oh,
watching
yeah.
this.
Known
Yeah.
unknowns and unknown unknowns became a big thing for a while. It was like just a universal punchline for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the quote. There are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know that there are some things we do not know. This is like, it's just like such dipshit philosophy, you know, like as if this is like, whoa,
Yeah.
dude, you're really blowing my mind here. Because
Yeah.
then he comes with, but there are also unknown unknowns, the ones we don't know. That's the end of the quote. People did dunk on Rumsfeld for like years after this.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing that he's saying there is false. It's just not a particularly astute observation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Jake continues in parentheses now. Was Rumsfeld writing LSAT questions in his spare time? Jake says, there are times when I'm finding myself making a tough decision between two answer choices. Those are my known unknowns. However, I'll often do a timed LR section, confidently complete all of the questions within 35 minutes, and still end up with something between -1 and -4. I've come to think of those questions I answer confidently but wrongly as my unknown unknowns. My question: how can I better approach identifying and tackling my unknown unknowns? Thank you for the amazing platform and community you have built. That's from Jake. What do you want to say to Jake?
Yeah, Jake. When you get questions wrong, the LSAT is telling you what you don't know. It's telling you what your unknown unknowns are. So now they become
turning it into a known unknown. Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's a known unknown, and you need to dig back into those questions and start at the beginning, reread the passage, figure out what you misread. It's almost always something that you misread. Reread the question, reread the answer choices, figure out where you went wrong. And when you do that, you start to just pick up clues or words or phrases that you might misread, and then you're much less likely to misread them in the future and then become known knowns, actually.
Yeah, totally. The test will show you pretty clearly what you don't understand. Remember, you had to make 2 mistakes, by the way, to miss that question. So if you're confidently finishing the section, but missing 4 questions, I would say that you think you understand a lot more than you're actually understanding, because you're picking a wrong answer and failing to pick the right answer. And that's 2 separate mistakes. So you need to investigate those mistakes thoroughly to try to clean those up. Jake, I would just want to tell you that you do still have unknown unknowns hiding amongst the answers you got right. Because for every question you miss, there's another one in there somewhere where you probably narrowed it down to 2 and half guessed and got it right. So you still have unknown unknowns. And I think only solution there is that you need to slow down. Hey,
Yeah.
Ben, there's one more category here in the matrix that Donald Rumsfeld never even talked about.
Yeah, unknown knowns.
Unknown knowns. Thank you. And you know why this is relevant to me? I send a welcome email to every single new subscriber at LSAT Demon. And a lot of times people write back and I hear them talk about what they're struggling with.
Yeah.
And I just can't tell you how many people I get who have studied with Seven Sage, Blueprint, Kaplan, Princeton, any other prep company. And I think what those companies do wrong is they give people so much theory up front that it causes them to start missing questions that previously would have been unknown knowns, right? When you start talking about read the question first before you even read the argument, then people go into this weird, highly technical strategery, and they just to bring up another joke from the era. For you kids out there, that was a George W. Bush quote. He talked about strategery. Anyway, all this strategery, it actually causes students to struggle with questions that they would have just gotten right naturally. And it's just shocking how often people new to the demon go, oh yeah, my blueprint class told me to read the question first, but I stopped doing that and immediately logical reasoning became way easier. And it's like, yeah, because it's not a test of knowledge. It's not a test of like fancy strategies and arcane knowledge. It's a test of how well you can just read and work your way through problems. And so before you ever even crack open your first LSAT book or first test, you have unknown knowns. It's just not that hard. The LSAT is easy. We wrote a book about it. It's on Amazon. It's called The LSAT is Easy. And I think that's what we're really trying to do, is to encourage people to just be okay with the fact that they can, out of the box, answer questions correctly. You just have to slow down and read it carefully and solve the damn question.
I agree. Yeah. Anything else for Jake?
No. We have a free class coming up. It is June 18th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. All you need is a Demon free account. We really should have a URL here to shout out on the agenda. It's, I think, lsat.link/free.
Yep.
Go to lsat.link/free if you would like to sign up for Reading Comprehension Prediction Fundamentals with Josh. You might know Josh from his appearances on the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. Great teacher. Everybody loves Josh. You want to say anything more about that?
No, it's a free class. They're usually quite packed.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of helpers there, a bunch of TAs in the chat to answer your questions about anything you want to talk about, not just the content of the class, but whatever else you want to talk about. Again, that's Wednesday, June 18th, 2 days from now, if you're listening to this podcast on launch day. Just get yourself an LSAT Demon free account and go hang out with Josh. Next one up here, Ben, is from Danielle. Danielle's asking about the LSAT curve.
Hey guys, I've been hearing from many people I know who've gone through this process that the exam is curved and that they end up taking some questions out due to a multitude of reasons. I was just wondering if the curve is actually a thing that they do when scoring, and if so, how that process works when scoring the exams. Thanks so much.
They don't curve it in the law school sense. In law school, and you probably had classes that were strictly curved in undergrad. When I was in law school, pretty much every class had a strict curve where it was like, look, the average GPA of the class has to be 2.7. So the typical grade is going to be a B-. You can give some B's and some B+. You can give no more than 10% A's, and you must give 10% C's or worse, something like that. That's a strict curve where even if, like if you put 100 chat GPTs and had them compete, some of them would still have to get C's and the average would still have to be a B- if it was a strict curve. That's not how the LSAT works. You want to talk about how the LSAT actually works? Because it's scaled, right? Not curved, but scaled.
Yeah, and I wish I understood it a little bit better. What I do know is that when they pre-test questions on your exam, so when you go take the exam, you're going to take 4 sections. One of those sections is going to be ungraded, and that's because they're pre-testing future questions. They're making sure that they're valid, that they accurately predict the skills of those who take the exam. And when they do that, they give each individual question a difficulty rating, and then they use that to create a new test that is presumably similar difficulty to the test that they've created before. So they're essentially trying to keep the test standardized by making sure that each LSAT is roughly the same difficulty overall.
Yeah. But if you get them all right, you're getting a 180.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody gets them all right, everybody's getting a 180.
Yep.
They do not curve it where, oh, you missed one question. Okay, that's a 120 now because everybody else did so well. That's not how it works. They determine the difficulty of the sections in advance, and then you're not actually ranked against anyone else. You're just scored against the difficulty of the test. What that means is that there aren't easier and harder tests throughout the year. You've probably had people come to you, Ben, and say, well, I think that the most savvy students are taking it in June, so I'm going to avoid the June test. Or they might say, well, I think that the softest competition is going to be in February, so I'm going to take it in February. And that's just silly because you're not competing against the other people who take the test on that day.
Well, and there's even some data out there that can be very misleading to people, and that is the fact that you can see that different test administrations historically, year over year, have higher average or lower average LSAT scores. So people see those tests and just assume that they're harder or easier, but it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's because all the tests are the same difficulty level or roughly the same. And of course, people who are more prepared are taking it at one time of the year, and people who are less prepared or trying to cram it in are taking it at another time of the year.
Right. If the more prepared students are taking it always in June, then we would expect that the June test would have a point or two higher average score. But that's not because the test is easier. That's just because the field is stronger. Yeah. And I mean, you can see that the scoring scale changes from test to test to test, right? Like, so sometimes to get a 170, you can miss 7. Other times you can miss 8 and get a 170. Other times you can miss 6 and get a 170. And that's just because if it's a -6 curve, they mean that they have looked at the test. They've tested the test against other experimental sections on the test, and they have determined that this test is a little bit easier. So we have to make the scoring scale a little bit harder to try to even it out. Point is, you can't tell how hard or easy any particular test is going to be. They try to make them all the same. And it is irrelevant whether you're taking it against better equipped students or lesser equipped students. You want to debunk this idea that they end up taking some questions out due to a multitude of reasons?
Debunk it. They do remove questions.
Yeah, but it's nothing that any student needs to worry about, is what I meant. I mean, if you look back at historical tests, you will see, this item removed from scoring.
Yep. Yeah.
And all that means is, it's hard to write questions. And what it means is they wrote this question, they did their best on it, then they tested it via the experimental section. They got back data on the question. The data was good enough for them to determine, okay, this question is good enough for us to put on the official test.
Yep.
But then after the official test, for whatever reason, and I always think it's because somebody wanted to sue them or something. This question is unfair because XYZ. This question triggered me because XYZ. And then they just say, okay, fine. And it could also be that the actual results, like if they get back super skewed results on that question, like if way too many people miss it, or I guess potentially if nobody misses it, then they might just say, actually, this wasn't a good question. And so we'll just remove it from scoring. But I mean, what do you think, Ben? Once a year, maybe that happens?
Yeah, at most. It is very rare. Because I mean, I do remember if you go all the way back to episode 5.
Really?
Episode 5 of the Thinking LSAT podcast, we talked about a professor, Alex, what was his name? I don't remember his name exactly. But anyways, this professor was I believe the president of LSAC at the time.
Okay. And
this is where the idea came from, at least that I got, that when you take a look at every individual question, everyone, as a higher test score, as someone's test score increases, their likelihood of succeeding on every individual question also must increase. So if there's ever a question where a band of test scores does worse or better than, well, let's just say worse than a group below them, then they're going to say, hey, something's wrong with that question.
Like a
So
negative correlation where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, higher scorers missed this question more often than lower scorers. Then
Yep.
they say, nah, that's not a good question, and they take it out.
Yep. And it has to, he was saying in that video that we evaluated, I think in that episode, he was saying that they have to do that for every score band. So all the way from 120 up to 180, every score band has to do better
Wow.
on each question. If there's any discrepancy, then they're going to take it out. So maybe it's a case where they passed the test in the experimental section, but when they got to the larger cohort, it didn't work out.
Yeah. The reason why I said debunk is just because it's a non-issue. Like,
Sure,
I've heard
what are you going to do
students
about it? Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard students say stupid shit like, well, sometimes they remove questions from scoring, and that's why I shouldn't take too long trying to solve a question that's hard.
It's probably, it might get removed. Like,
It might just get removed from
No,
scoring. And
it's
then
not. Yeah.
they'll use that as an excuse for like glossing 5 different questions during the section. Oh,
Sure.
well, it's probably not a valid question anyway. Let me move on. Oh yeah, this one too. I can't spend too much time on it because it might be removed from scoring. Let me gloss it and move on. It's like, well, okay. When they maybe remove 1 question per year, probably not even that.
Yeah.
It's not something that you should ever be thinking about. It should have no part of your strategy. So just please don't worry about it. Next item on the agenda is from Concierge Caden, who is asking about predatory pre-law jobs.
Predatory pre-law jobs? Interesting.
Yeah.
Dear fellow demons, I want to share part of my experience job hunting. I recently received a job offer for a support role at a big law firm in their San Francisco office. The recruiter insisted that it was a great legal experience, but in reality, it was coffee runs and scheduling car services. The firm expected 50 plus hours a week of on-site work for $50,000 a year. I asked a family friend, a partner at a regional firm, about the value of this experience, and he told me that this firm prefers to his firm. He told me that his firm prefers to hire law students with legal adjacent experience in a field similar to the practice area they plan to enter, rather than students with firm experience that is not legal in nature.
I mean, no shit, but still, any firm is better than no firm at all, surely.
Well, you're seeing the day-to-day life, right, in some way.
Yeah.
All this to say, beware of bad jobs at sexy firms. There are some good ones, but also tons of predatory junk. If you're going to hate your life in big law, you should at least get decent experience and a living wage.
Wow, $50,000 a year is not a lot of money in San Francisco. Like, they're requiring you to be in downtown San Francisco every day. There's not a lot of places that you can live within reasonable commute distance of downtown San Francisco on $50,000 a year. I mean, it's been a long time since I lived in San Francisco, but I had like a screaming deal on a 1-bedroom apartment for $1,600 or $1,700 a month. And that was a screaming deal. And that was 10 years ago. So I'm trying to imagine these days, $50,000 minus $15,000 or $20,000 worth of combined federal and state tax. It gets you down to a take-home income of maybe $3,000 a month.
Yeah, I think that's a little high. I think that...
What, you think the taxes that I'm estimating are high?
I think the taxes are high. So maybe it's more like 40,000.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Maybe those brackets are lower than I think they are, but still, let's say you're taking home, you're still not taking home $4,000 a month, right? You're taking home you're taking home $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right? And on $3,000 a month, you're going to pay these days, get yourself roommates and pay $1,500 a month just for rent.
Yeah.
Wow. And then all you're doing is coffee runs and scheduling car services. You you could probably do more than that. Like, I understand that that's what they're going to ask you to do.
Yeah, but if you step up, they might give you other
You kidding?
responsibilities. Yeah.
Oh, I see
There's
that you're
so much
putting
work
together
there.
these packets for your hearing tomorrow. Can I help with that? You know, anything you need me to do here? I don't know. I mean, ultimately you are going to have to like carry the ball in your life, right? It's just like employers aren't going to want to tell you every single thing that you need to do.
Yeah.
They're going to want people who are going to like do shit. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but like if this is a really good firm and you're in the door getting paid something,
Yeah.
that certainly seems better than not if you think you want to get into big law.
Yeah.
That said, if you didn't see any upside in it, I wouldn't stay there for very long. I mean, if it really was 50 hours a week of just getting coffee and scheduling car services and they were treating you like shit and they expected you to be there 10 hours a day and there was no route to any kind of increased responsibility or connections, I certainly wouldn't stick around just to have it on the resume.
Yeah.
Right? The point of doing this work is not to pad your resume. The point of doing this work is to make connections and learn and like actually be building a career. The point is you should, you know, if you've never worked in any law firm, this sounds like a great idea to me, even if it's a shitty job, so that you can get in there and you can learn like, oh, okay, so this is the type of place where the masters of the universe treat all the staff like shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to decide whether that's the type of environment you want to work in or not. But how long would you stick it out, Ben?
I don't know. It would depend a lot on how much you can make of it. I think you make a very good point. People are always looking for good talent. If you're I know it sounds funny, but if you're doing a coffee run and scheduling a car service, well,
Oh, yeah.
they will give you other responsibilities. They'll say,
Because-
yeah, that guy
yeah.
got it right. He got it here quickly. He gets it here every time, on time, in the morning before I even ask.
He doesn't ask me a million annoying questions. He
Do I have
doesn't
to do this
forget
now?
things. He doesn't complain about things.
Yeah.
He just does it and he does it right. And he other times does things without even ask. I don't even have to ask him and he does it right.
Yeah.
And you can put yourself out there and you can hang around by the copy machine and go, hey, you want some help with that?
Get to know people. Yeah.
I mean, all that said, if I'm there for a month and I don't feel like I'm making any progress to higher responsibility, I would certainly be looking for other opportunities.
Yep.
And I would not be afraid to walk because I don't give a shit. If I don't like whatever, I just won't even put it on my resume.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just go do something else and be good at that.
All right. This next one is from John. The subject is sufficient versus necessary assumptions.
Hi, Demon Team. I'm new to the LSAT Demon. Can you help me to understand the difference between necessary and sufficient assumption? There are some questions where I feel that the necessary assumption would also be a sufficient assumption. And that's because why?
They sometimes are.
They sometimes are. It seems like we should probably do an example.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Do you have a go-to?
I don't have a go-to off the
I do.
top of my head. Go for it.
Going to a baseball game this weekend. Tickets cost $20. I am going to go to the baseball game. I'm going to buy myself a ticket for the baseball game this weekend. Which one of the following is an assumption that the argument requires? That's a necessary assumption question. Which one of the following, if assumed, would allow the conclusion to be properly drawn? That's a sufficient assumption question. The two questions do ask very different things. The necessary assumption question asks which one has to be true, according to the speaker. The sufficient assumption question asks which one, if true, will prove the conclusion. And it's a big, big difference in the type of question that's being asked. One of them is like the record is closed. It's like a must be true question. You got to pick one where you know for sure this has to be true according to the speaker. The other one is an open record question. It's like a super strengthened question where the correct answer, if true, forces the conclusion of the argument to be true. Nonetheless, if there's an answer that says Nathan has $20, that is both a necessary and a sufficient assumption of the argument.
What's your conclusion?
I will buy myself a ticket this weekend. I mean, I know it's not a perfect example, but without an actual LSAT question in front of us, I just want people to, I think that this is a good teaching. It's like a little toy for them to understand without getting into don't worry about the weeds. If you've got $20 in your pocket, you have to have $20 in your pocket to buy that ticket, right? So it's necessary that you have the $20. It's also sufficient that you have the $20. If you had the $20, then that's enough that you can buy the ticket. You have to have the $20 or else you can't buy the ticket. That's why it's necessary. If you do have the $20, you can buy the ticket. That's why it's sufficient. On easier necessary assumption and sufficient assumption questions, you can get it right by applying the wrong analysis. And that's why so many LSAT books are so bad at teaching assumption questions. I mean, some LSAT books don't even make a differentiation. They just call them assumption questions. And yeah, sure, that works on level 1, level 2 difficulty questions. Frequently, you can get them right by applying the wrong analysis. But on a harder question, it's going to say which one of these is required. And there's going to be an answer that says, Nate has at least $5. Now, is that necessary or sufficient or both? And it's two separate analyses. I'll let you do the analysis, Ben. $5. Necessary?
Necessary. You
Why?
have to have that. If you don't have $5, you're not going to be able to buy a ticket.
Right. So if this was a necessary assumption question, you could say, oh yeah, Nathan has to have at least $5. Okay. Is it sufficient?
It's not sufficient. It's not enough.
Not sufficient.
More, I wouldn't be able to buy the ticket. Yeah.
It's not sufficient because $5 by itself doesn't allow me to buy the ticket. Okay. And then, so there's an example of how, $20 was exactly necessary and sufficient.
Yep.
$5 is necessary, but not sufficient. How about $100?
Yeah.
Is it necessary?
Sufficient. No, it's not necessary. You don't need that much. You got $80 extra. Yep.
So it is not necessary that I have 100. I could go to the game with a lot less. But if I did have 100, that's sufficient. Sufficient means enough. And it's more than enough, but more than enough is enough.
Yeah.
So that'll get you there. What more do you want to say about this to John?
What'd you just say?
This question. I mean,
to John. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I'd love to give another example because I think this is something that's hard for people to get their mind wrapped around.
Sure.
And I think that example is a good one. Here's another one if it helps.
Okay.
Tomorrow, I will eat a banana.
Okay.
Therefore, tomorrow, I will get sick.
Oh. Okay.
So, what are some necessary assumptions? What are things that have to be true?
It is possible that eating a food item could contribute to Ben's sickness.
Yes.
That's necessary.
That has to be necessary. Given
that has to be true.
That argument. Yep.
And one thing I always say in class when I'm teaching this idea about like how necessary feels, I'll go, well, look, I mean, that doesn't prove that Ben's going to get sick, but they have to agree that food intake can contribute sometimes to sickness. Because if they're not saying that, then what the fuck are they saying?
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Ben just said, I'm going to eat a banana tomorrow, therefore I will get sick tomorrow. Well, if he's not saying that fruit intake can possibly affect your health, then what?
Why did he say therefore after talking about bananas, right? Like,
right. His shit no longer makes any sense at all. If he's not saying that, then what is he saying?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. So that's a necessary condition. I guess you're necessarily assuming that it's possible that you eat sometimes.
Yes, I'm assuming that.
You necessarily get sick sometimes.
Yep. It's possible for me to get sick from the consumption of food, as you just said. Some bananas make me sick, or at least contribute to my sickness.
Okay.
Now, sufficient assumption would be something, it can be something overpowered. It could be that all activities ever imagined that Ben does makes Ben sick.
Yeah. Anytime Ben eats, he gets sick.
Yep.
Or Ben gets sick every day.
Yes. Or, well, yeah, that one would be less tied to the argument we just made, but it would work.
Nonetheless, it would prove the conclusion of the argument.
It would prove the conclusion. All foods make Ben sick. That's sufficient assumption because it makes the conclusion true.
It could be something narrower, right? Any banana that Ben eats makes him sick.
Yep.
Or it could be even as narrow as any banana that Ben could possibly eat tomorrow will make Ben sick.
Yep.
It could be something very specific, like Nathan went to Ben's house and poisoned all the bananas, and Ben will eat one of those poisoned bananas, which is sure to make him sick.
Yeah.
Something like that could prove your conclusion. Can you come up with something that's both sufficient and necessary for that argument?
Yeah. The banana that Ben will eat tomorrow will make him sick.
Yeah. Because if that's not true, then Ben's argument no longer makes any sense.
Yep.
Like if you're not saying that, it sounds like it's just a repeat of the argument, by the way.
Yeah, that's what happens a lot of times.
Right.
And
That happens
like,
a
but that
lot
was
on
already
necessary
said.
assumption. Exactly. And that's where people fuck up assumption questions so hard. This is a good teaching moment, I think, for the audience. Just because it feels like they said it, that doesn't mean it's wrong, ever.
Yeah.
That's just not what we're doing on assumption questions. When you think that, on assumption questions, I'm supposed to be looking for something that was unstated. No, bullshit. That is not what we're doing. You might think that's what you're supposed to be doing. You might have learned elsewhere that that's what you're supposed to be doing, but that should be zero part of your analysis. Your analysis on assumption questions. Yes.
Well, yeah, to be clear, we aren't saying something that was already said in this example.
Fine.
Yeah.
I agree, but there are questions where it's a necessary assumption question and the right answer looks like it's just the conclusion of the argument. And it's like, well, okay, but that has to be true according to them because that's their conclusion. I just know that students lead themselves astray a lot going, well, yeah, I see that that's in line with their argument, but it feels like they already said it. I just can't think of a single example where that is what makes an answer wrong. It could be something different. It could be something that they didn't actually say. And so you could be correct that it's not the right answer, but it's not wrong for the reason you thought it's wrong because it actually misstates what they said.
Yeah. Or it's right. It's just, it really wasn't said, even though they think it was said.
Yeah.
And here's it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that if you think unstated is part of your analysis, I just don't think that's right. I think on necessary assumption questions, which one do they have to agree with? Which one must be true according to them? Okay. I'm not saying anything about whether they said it or not. Just which one must be true according to them. And then on sufficient assumption questions, I think sufficient assumption questions, it is much more like an unstated thing. Which one, if true, right? Which one, if added to their argument, will prove the conclusion true.
Yeah.
But I still never say unstated. I just say
it doesn't matter in part because there is even a correct answer once where the correct answer is simply, I know we hate this word, but contrapositive of the conclusion. So some people might argue, that's saying something different, but you could say that's really just saying the same thing. And all they've done is they've proven the conclusion. That's what I always say.
Yeah. To me, a statement and the contrapositive of that statement is just two different ways of saying the exact same thing because it is. But yeah, I want to triple down on this idea that you can take unstated out of your assumption analysis. That's not the point. On a necessary assumption question, you're looking for a must be true. And on a sufficient assumption question, you're looking for a super strengthener, something that will force the conclusion to be true. And I frequently ask students, okay, what are we doing on a sufficient assumption question? Oh, I'm looking for something unstated that blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Like let's cut the fat here because I want to make it easy. So let's get right to the meat of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which one must be true on a necessary assumption and on a sufficient assumption? Which one, if true, forces the conclusion to be true? Or another way of saying that, even shorter, which one makes the argument win?
Yep.
Which one proves the conclusion? So again, Ben, back to your banana example. The banana Ben eats tomorrow will make him sick. Yeah, that has to be true because that's basically what your argument said. Also, if it's true, it will force your conclusion to be true. Again, because it's basically what you said. It's like it sounds like it's just restating your entire argument. Well, then, yeah, okay, that's probably both necessary and sufficient. Anything more, do you think, for John on sufficient and necessary assumptions?
No,
I do have one further note. The nomenclature here causes confusion because we also teach students about sufficient and necessary conditions, that's just an if then. If I eat a banana, that's the sufficient condition. Then I will get sick. That's the necessary condition. And it's just not the same thing as necessary and sufficient assumption questions. And even LSAT teachers, I busted somebody in our teacher Slack yesterday. Even LSAT teachers sometimes conflate these two. They just get lazy and they start talking about SA and NA, sufficient assumption and necessary assumption, when what they really mean is just conditional logic, sufficient and necessary conditions.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
The analogy I like to use is that necessary and sufficient are just adjectives. So they're just adjectives describing assumption or describing conditions. So it's kind of like the difference between talking about hot and cold food versus a hot and cold day. They're wildly different things. They just are both being described by the same type of adjective.
Yeah. And assumption is a noun. And so when we talk about a necessary assumption question, necessary is telling you about the type of assumption question. Sufficient assumption question. Sufficient is telling you about the type of assumption question. But in conditional logic, if we're talking about if-then statements or only ifs or unlesses or whatever else, they're necessary condition. Necessary, the adjective modifying condition, the noun. But yeah, people just think, oh, teach me. I'm confused about necessary and sufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. Necessary and sufficient what?
Are you confused about hot and cold days or hot and cold food? It's like understanding one can help you understand the other in some ways because they are similar words. But yeah, they're wildly different topics.
How hard would it be, Ben? I know we only have 10,000 explanations in the daemon. But how hard would it be to just change our nomenclature? I would get rid of necessary assumption and sufficient assumption, and I would just call them like required and like super strengthener or something.
Yeah, or prove.
Yeah.
Prove. Yeah, that's interesting. Updating all the text would be a project, but
have to update the book. Have to update 511 episodes of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Yeah, maybe we'll just continue to remind people.
I wonder if there's value. I don't know, because the LSAT does use these terms in the context of conditions, but
we're using the nomenclature that was handed down to us by the Law School Admission Council when we first started. Thanks for writing in, John. Hey, Ben.
Yep.
What's the deal with Temple University law?
I have no idea, but apparently correspondent Timmy has written in, "Hi, Demon Team. What is the deal with Beasley School of Law at Temple University? It appears it is very favorable in multiple financial statistics, including debt-to-income ratios out of law school. Thank you."
we did a bunch of research here. Producer Josh did a great job here with a whole bunch of links and resources and numbers and stuff. I also prompted ChatGPT to do an analysis,
Hmm.
and I kind of want to start with that
Sure.
because it did an amazing job,
Okay.
I thought.
Okay.
I said, now I do have a system prompt, which, by the way, if you aren't customizing your large language models, you're doing it wrong. You need to tell your LLMs how to respond to you. And so I have customized, ChatGPT a bit to tell it like what kind of tone I want it to use and what kind of feedback I want it to give me, and to please, dear God, stop glazing me, just like don't tell me that every fucking idea I have is a great idea.
Yeah.
Because it will frequently do that by default, especially the 4.0 model. Still, even though they claim to have fixed it, I can't believe how much it sucks up to the user. I do like the 0.3 model best. It takes a little longer frequently, but it comes back with better responses. Anyway, my prompt was, what are the 5 best and worst things about Temple Law School? Be brutally frank, please. Consider not only the quality of the school, but job outcomes and cost. Is it worth the money? Is it fair that some students get scholarships and others don't? I would encourage people to steal that prompt and ask ChatGPT what it thinks of any law school
That you're considering. Yeah.
that you're considering.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is amazing. 0.3 thought for 1 minute and 24 seconds.
Okay.
And it came back with, Temple can be a steal if you're an in-state resident, land a decent scholarship, and want to work in Philly or South Jersey. Pay full out-of-state sticker for a mid-50s ranked school, and you're subsidizing everyone else's discount. 5 best things: low in-state sticker plus huge discounting. Base tuition, $31.3 thousand for Pennsylvania residents. It's calling that low, which is ironic. And nearly 9 in 10 students get a grant. 62% get at least half tuition scholarships. Have to fact check all this because it's ChatGPT. Number 2 best thing about it, jobs. Class of 2024 posted a 95.6% employment rate, 93% in bar required and JD Advantage jobs. That's from Temple's website. The the schools sometimes glaze themselves. Number 3, it calls Temple a trial advocacy juggernaut because U.S. News ranks Temple's trial ad program number 1. Real courtroom reputations matter. Oh, sorry, not reputations, reps. Real courtroom reps matter in Philly's litigation heavy market. Of course, that's not real classroom reps, real courtroom reps. Those are classroom reps, which are not courtroom reps. But anyway, 83.7% bar passage beats Pennsylvania's statewide rate by about 9 points. And there aren't any gotcha scholarships. They do not yank scholarships for missing class ranks, only for falling out of good academic standing. 5 worst things? Well, if you're out of state, the sticker is $48,000. Add $27,000 of living costs, and you're north of $225,000 for 3 years if you miss the scholarship boat, according to Chat. There's a regional ceiling. 134 out of 215 employed grads stay in Pennsylvania. New Jersey and New York add 37 more. National firms know Temple, but they don't court it like the T14s, says ChatGPT.
Okay.
Middling overall rank of number 54 says employers outside the Mid-Atlantic still sort resumes by rank. You'll be shoulder checking grads from dozens of higher ranked schools for the same New York City and DC gigs. Only 41 grads, about 18%, made it to the biggest law firms. ChatGPT calls that the path to a $225,000 salary that can crush debt. If you miss that cut, Philly market salaries drop fast. And then it says, you may be the subsidy. 11% get no grant at all. They pay full freight so the school can, quote, scholarship discount stronger LSAT and GPA applicants. If your numbers are average and you don't haggle, you're the sucker at the table.
The source of all these, quote, facts are Temple University's website.
Yeah. So unless something real weird happened, I don't doubt that those numbers, they might not be up to date. Who knows? So is it worth the money? Yeah. In-state or a hefty scholarship can get your net tuition to about $20,000 or less per year. If you're happy building a career in Philly or South Jersey, DA and PD offices or mid-sized firms, and if you can graduate with less than $100,000 in debt from law and undergrad, GPT says, then it's worth the money. Probably not if any of these apply. If you pay near sticker price as an out-of-state student, if you want Los Angeles, Chicago, or big law, or you have big law only ambitions, or if you're debt averse and banking on six-figure salaries from day one, probably not a good idea.
Almost everyone should be debt averse.
Yeah, you're crazy if you're not debt averse. Who's not debt averse? Who's like, well,
Trump? I feel like that guy
I think
takes out
there's two
loans.
sides to the story. I think we should give debt a second chance.
Give it a second look.
Could be good. Yeah. Okay. Is the scholarship game fair? That's a question that I asked ChatGPT. It said, fact. Temple's 89% scholarship rate means a high LSAT applicant is effectively buying a cheaper JD, while lower score peers help foot the bill. Is it fair? Only if you think merit aid is a legit recruiting tool. From a consumer protection standpoint, it's a regressive cross-subsidy.
Wow. Interesting.
I know. That's
Crazy.
where I was like, damn, ChatGPT goes hard.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. I like that. I'm going to steal that for sure. Regressive cross-subsidy. It is regressive.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it charges poor people more.
Yeah.
That's regressive. We have in the United States, we have a progressive tax system. Like we charge richer people more. That's a progressive tax system. Law school pricing is regressive.
It's the opposite.
Yes.
And radically so.
Radically regressive. Yes. We talked about this on episode 510 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. We talked about the disparity index, and we have a spreadsheet that you can see exactly how big the difference is between the haves and the have-nots. But there's a big, big difference there. And it's because of this regressive cross-subsidy.
Yeah. Imagine, so our tax brackets, right? They start at 0 and they go up to the 30s, something in the 30s. And imagine that as you went up in income, your tax percentage went down to 0, and then eventually you were given money for making money. That's the system that the law school scholarship system emulates. Yeah.
And much of the world just is that way. It's not like this is anything new. The rich get richer is a cliche for a reason. You might have heard people say that the first million is the hard one.
Mm-hmm.
And it is true that like the wealthier you get, the easier it is to continue to get more wealthy. Wealthier. And but that doesn't mean that that's like a good system for legal education.
Yeah.
The system, by the way, was not designed. It evolved, and it's an unintended consequence of the student loan system. And it's just something that people need to be aware of.
Yeah.
ChatGPT says it's your move. Use your LSAT as leverage, pit schools against each other, and never be afraid to negotiate. If Temple won't budge, another regional public school like Rutgers or Pitt or CUNY Probably will.
Hmm.
Brutal bottom line. Temple is the cost-efficient Philly workhorse. It's great value for strong applicants who play the scholarship game and stay local. Pay full price, believing the prestige hype, and you're a charitable donor, not the savvy investor. I would like us to build a tool that basically does this, like just gives the same prompt, like just has a really good system prompt.
Yeah.
And just prompts ChatGPT to do this.
Yep.
At the least, in our show notes, we can provide a copy paste, like, here's the prompt that you might consider using.
Mm-hmm.
And just try it out on whatever school you're thinking about going to.
Yeah.
By the way, I think I mentioned this last week too. Did I talk about negotiating with a car dealership using ChatGPT?
Yeah. How'd it go?
Badass, dude. Just fucking badass. Like really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Even if it's wrong sometimes, it's still so helpful. It's just on your side. It can instantly analyze documents.
Mm-hmm.
It did save me $7,500 that I wouldn't even have spotted. But I showed it like, oh, well, here's the contract, here's the price. That's the price that I was looking for.
Yeah.
And it's like, full stop, red flag.
Hmm.
And it showed me this line that they had like snuck in there about some deposit. Oh, this isn't part of the price. It's just a deposit, an additional deposit on top of the price that we're going to charge you. And you get that money back after 2,000 miles on the car or something.
What?
I know.
Weird.
Dude, car dealership shit is the shadiest.
Yeah.
I really want somebody to just have rational car pricing. I mean, I probably should use the Costco auto buyers thing. I don't know why I didn't even think about that this time, but next time I'm just going to use that because at least there it's like one price pre-negotiated and you just stop fucking around. But anyway, ChatGPT was immensely helpful as a negotiating partner. Just literally every email that I got back from the dealership, I just pasted it into ChatGPT and it assessed it. Documents and everything. And it just reads it in 1 second.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, you have to fact check it, but boy, it's on your side, doesn't fall for any bullshit, spots all kinds of red flags, helps you draft emails, immensely, immensely more productive if you know how to use these tools.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I know I'm preaching to the choir because I know that you know the value of these tools, but it's amazing how many people don't, right? I mean, like even listen to politicians, and lots of times politicians are like, "Oh yeah, no, these things. Oh, nobody uses those. They don't actually do anything." It's like, okay, well, tell me you've never used it in 2025 without telling me you've never used it in 2025, because even if it sucked a couple years ago, it's immensely better now. Want to take a look at some of this stuff that Timmy has that Josh has provided in response to this prompt?
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so the first thing that Josh shares with us is that they apparently issued a press release incorrectly announcing their ranks for 2026.
Temple Law rises in 2026 U.S. News and World Report ranking.
I guess it didn't rise.
Well, it's just that the 2026 U.S. News and World Report rankings aren't out yet.
Maybe. Okay. So it's for 2025.
I mean, don't they usually come out at the very beginning of 2020? They come out at the very beginning of the year, right? We just recently had new rankings.
Update. Yeah. I don't know what year they're calling them, but presumably they're 2025.
Let me quick Google here. U.S. News and World Report 2025 best law schools. And this is the current rankings, right? Stanford and Yale tied for number 1. Chicago, number 3. UVA, number 4. Penn, number 5. And then, Duke, Harvard tied for number 6. So there's 7 schools in the top 6. Yep. And then scrolling down.
Yep.
We see for the first time Wash U now part of that 3-way tie for number 14. So no, 4-way tie for number 14, which gets us to 17 schools in the top 14. Yeah. So these are 2025 rankings. I mean, it says clearly ranked in 2025. 2025 Best Law Schools is the title. But apparently on Temple's own website, Temple Law School rose 4 spots to number 50 in U.S. News and World Report's 2026 law school rankings. And the headline also says 2026 U.S. News and World Report ranking. Is that like some, you know what that makes me think of is like SEO.
Oh, like they're trying to get ahead?
Like they've got some consultant who's like, hey, people are searching for 2026 rankings. Let's make a blog post. Are they even 50? Let's see. Are they even actually ranked 50th?
They are ranked 50th in 2025.
So that's just a typo, I guess.
Yeah, let me give you some history on their ranking just so you can understand how quickly these things change.
Great.
A year ago, they were 54. Then and before that, they were 54. Before that, they were 63. So you'd say, oh, wow, they've really been on the rise. Well, actually, before that, they were 56. And before that, they were 48. And before that, they were 47. So they haven't caught up with the ranking they had in 2019.
But of course, they're going to always crow loudly about any uptick.
Sure.
They're going to then downplay any downtick or not even mention it at all.
The rankings are
Talk
stupid.
about other stuff. Yeah, complain about the rankings. That's the famous David Fagman thing at UC Hastings, which he's had to do a lot as the Hastings rank has continued to fall over the past decade or so.
Yeah.
All right. So from the 509 report, this is confirming what ChatGPT was saying. 89% of all students get some kind of grant.
Yep.
62% of those get more than half off. For the full-time program, it's even more. 94% get some kind of a grant and 74% get more than half.
Wow. That's a lot.
They do have a part-time evening program with, not quite so many scholarships. Still a lot, but not quite so many. They are 68th on our disparity index chart out of 200-ish ranked U.S. law schools. They are, slightly a bigger disparity than other schools. If you pay full price, you'll pay $147,000 just in tuition and fees. But if you get one of their better end of their scholarships, not their best scholarship, by the way, but just their 75th percentile scholarship, you'll only pay $32,000 in tuition and fees. So there's a disparity there of $115,000. And this is, again, what ChatGPT astutely was calling a regressive subsidy.
I wonder if we should switch our disparity index to put the smallest disparity at the top.
Potentially, if we don't want to just highlight the biggest disparities.
Yeah, well, it's almost like you're saying you're number one in disparity. Like you're the least bad.
Hey, it depends on whether whether you like disparities or not.
Yeah, maybe
people
that's
like disparities. It could be working in your favor if you're, white and rich and want to go to a school that does a good, which by the way, you probably should as a savvy applicant.
You should probably go to a high disparity school. Yeah.
You should probably be leveraging this, right? That's where this is just, I'm not sure if it's the prisoner's dilemma or the tragedy of the commons or both. Could be neither. But this is just one of those like economic paradoxes where, the individuals in the game, even if they disagree with the rules of the game, they should take individual actions that will then make the whole system worse.
Yes.
Yeah. The difference between the haves and the have-nots at Temple Law is $115,000 a year. That is the regressive cross-subsidy. And the reason why it's regressive is because higher LSAT, higher GPA students are the ones who get the scholarships, and they do tend to be richer and whiter. The poorer, browner people tend to be the ones who have lower LSAT, lower GPA, and they pay more. So there's $115,000 worth of regressive cross subsidy that's happening there between the people who get no scholarship and the people who get one of the better scholarships.
Hey, by the way, while you were talking, I had to look them up. It's not the prisoner's dilemma, because the prisoner's dilemma is where, you're in a situation that you're making rational choices that are not in
yeah,
your
right.
best interest,
You're right.
even though collectively it could be. But tragedy of the commons is exactly what we're talking
You're
about
right.
here. It's a scenario where individuals acting independently and rationally in their own self-interest deplete a shared resource, even though it is detrimental to the collective well-being. That's
Yeah.
exactly what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And in that scenario, it's like specifically the people with more cattle, you know, like they are the ones who should open the gates first to turn their cattle out onto the commons, to make sure that they keep getting richer. Every individual in the game should operate that way, but we should be also, I think, if we care about justice, you know, like many of our students claim to, and I believe are genuine, that they actually care about fairness and just outcomes. And if you care about fairness and just outcomes, especially in education, I think you should be making some noise about this system because it just doesn't seem right. Like, I don't think anyone would think that this is a system that is fair at all.
But does that mean that you end up taking a full tuition, like a
You'd have to be
full
very
price
committed
offer?
to your ideals, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
And I don't think you're really helping anybody. You're just giving money to the school,
Right.
which is then going to perpetuate their behavior.
individual action, dude. Like,
Yeah.
really? Oh, you're going to save the environment by taking shorter showers? Come on. I, I mean, I admire your principles. I just don't think you're actually doing anything.
Yeah.
You know, and so instead it's like, this is one of those examples where no, it requires government action. Like, this is where, like, what's the point of having regulators if they're not going to regulate something like this?
Yeah.
Like, this system has evolved to create unjust outcomes. There is a regressive cross-subsidy that's happening in law school tuitions, and it's happening because of the availability of student loans. So if you're concerned about student loans, then instead of talking about debt forgiveness, you should be talking about this.
The irony,
Make law schools charge everybody the same price.
the irony is that the system is a regressive cross subsidy in the name of progressive cross subsidy, or in the name of progressive subsidy. It's like, hey, we're going to subsidize
Yes.
poorer folks with student loans, but the end result is literally the opposite.
Yeah. The deeper you get into this stuff, the less ironic it is, because ironic means surprising, right?
Yeah,
And so the more we've learned about it, the more we're like, well, of course that's how it is. Like, who do you think is guarding the hen house?
Yeah.
Of course the foxes are guarding the hen house. If that was in a children's book, it would be very ironic. But adults who have any experience in the world start to realize, oh, of course the regulatory body has been captured by the scammers themselves.
Yeah.
And so all they're doing here is just trying to keep the student loan grift going as long as they possibly can. And they don't give a shit about the outcomes for individual students. They don't care. They care about raking tuition.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Employment outcomes. 85% employed in bar required positions. More than half employed in Pennsylvania. Only 25% going into big law. Fewer into the big est firms. Notice that ChatGPT called 501 or more the big firms.
Law. Yeah.
Here, Josh is using the 250 cutoff plus federal clerkships, being a little bit more generous to say, hey, 250 is pretty big. Federal clerkships also counts, because if you can get a federal clerkship, you can probably work anywhere you want. But you still only get to 25% of Temple Law grads, which again, you know, this is champagne tuition leading to a beer salary, right? I mean, they're charging the same prices as the best law schools in the country. The outcomes, though, are not the same, where the entire class at Harvard is going to waltz right into big law if they want to. Only 25% of the class at Temple is going to go into big law, and it's going to be cutthroat to get there.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they charge significantly less than one of the truly good schools.
This change is funny. The one for the ABA Employment Outcome Report. Apparently in 2023, they were required to report, quote, employed, bar admission required. So if you if you were employed in a job that required a bar passage, then okay, great. You fell into this group. But in 2024, the report now says employed, bar admission required, or anticipated.
Oh, so that's just a relaxing of the reported statistic.
Exactly. This is
So
more
that-
favorable for the school. It's the
Yeah.
it's the regulatory capture taking place over a long period of time.
Yeah.
It's this
So
slow degrading of what these numbers mean. Or
the
say.
schools, oh, well, it's not fair to say, that it's not fair. I mean, if they have a job that, like they got a job offer, but then that job offer got furloughed for 9 months or whatever. I mean, that's their job. They haven't
They're
started yet
effectively,
working in a
yeah.
bar admission required job, but it's anticipated that they will. Who knows what? I mean, anticipated,
Yeah, that's wildly loose.
depending on how you're going to define anticipated.
I'm still applying, so I anticipate to get one of these jobs soon.
On the LSAT, like the actual dictionary definition, anticipated means to anticipate means to regard something as probable, to expect or predict. It was anticipated that the rains would slow the military campaign. Yeah, it at most it would mean 50% or more, right? Like if it means likely means more likely than not, means it's anticipated. Half the time it doesn't come to be. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Debt to income numbers. This comes from Law Hub. The median actually borrowed was $68,000, and the median earnings is $69,000.
Yikes.
So you're going to be basically borrowing an entire first year salary. Wow. And yeah, there is a lot of buzz about the strength of their trial program.
Juggernaut. That's
It's a
all.
juggernaut.
Thanks, chat.
Oh my God. All right. Well, that's the deal with Temple University School of Law. I mean, if you're in Philly, it should absolutely be on your list to apply. Probably if you're even in New York City and you're looking to build out a list of 15 schools to apply to, which most applicants, if you're going to be savvy, you should. No reason not to apply to Temple if your LSAT and GPA are in the range that would probably give you a scholarship. Just go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships, by the way, to help you build out your list of schools. There's no red flags here other than the default standard red flag, which applies to every law school.
Yeah.
Which is just, you got to look at the price, and they don't tell you the price until they've actually admitted you.
Yep.
Which is so fucking broken. That's so broken. That's like car dealerships where they have, MSRP. Yeah, okay, but I know that's not the real price. They just don't tell you the real price. It's just the shadiest thing in the world, and it's designed for price discrimination. They want to be able to charge everybody a different price.
Yep.
Can I tell you one other shady thing that happened in my car buying experience?
Please.
Made a deal for a car. They sent me a contract. They wanted my driver's license to hold the car. I said, I stupidly was like, yeah, sure. Okay, fine. I sent a picture of the driver. Like, I thought we had a done deal. Next thing you know, there's this delay because of a software update, something. Yeah, I might not be able to do it till the end of the month. I start asking questions like, hey, I've got summer plans. I'm going to be gone. What are you talking about? And I can't do it till the end of the month. I thought do you have the car? Oh yeah, we have the car. Okay, well, can I make it happen sooner than this? Like,
yeah.
Can I bring it back in later to do the software update? Yeah. So, can I get your phone number? Because, my, manager wants to call you to talk about the car. Okay. Dude calls me. Yeah. So, about this software thing. So, what happened was we thought that it was going to be a software update, but it turns out that there's actually a hardware update that's required, and so it's going to cost us about
My
it's going to cost us
gosh.
about $7,000 more. So instead of this number, what could you do this other number?
Oh my gosh. And they're
I'm
trying to
like,
make it sound like a deal. Like they're asking you for like 5,000 more. Like they're going to take some of that.
I think he asked for 6,000 out of the 7,000 or
Oh my
something. And
gosh.
I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't think so. Well, could you maybe do 5,000? I'm like, no. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Fucking see you later.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not dealing with like you're obviously bargaining in bad faith.
Yeah.
And you know what I think happened?
Hmm.
I think they looked up my house. I think
Yeah.
they like had my address on my driver's license,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, I think this guy can pay more." At
Yep.
least that's what I think happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, this is just unbelievably shady. It's just
Yeah.
fucking sucks so bad.
Yeah. And that's what law schools are trying to do. They're trying to get all sorts of information from you.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
you're visiting here? Where are you visiting from? How'd you get here? Oh, you flew in? Oh, interesting. Okay.
Not only that, but we know that they like pay consulting companies to go
Yeah.
out and do this kind of research.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have way more information than just your zip code. Like
Yeah.
they know your parents' zip code. They know how much your parents paid for the house. They know like they've got all kinds of information on you.
Yeah.
And they're using it to price discriminate
Mhm.
so that they can create this cross-subsidy,
Regressive.
this
Cross-subsidy.
regressive cross-subsidy. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm never going to stop saying that. All right. Personal Statement Gong Show. This is the segment of the show where we read your personal statements and offer feedback. However, as soon as we have an issue with it, we ring the gong and stop reading. Your challenge is to see how long you can get us to read. B is our next contestant to beat the current record of 10 lines, which is still held by Greta. You want to read B's personal statement?
Sure. My mother was an English teacher and is a brilliant woman.
Boo.
Why are we talking about your mother? Why aren't we talking about you?
Is your mother applying to law school?
Presumably not.
I know lots of brilliant people who have shitty kids. I also know shitty people who have great kids. It's kind of the luck of the draw, really, on the kids.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like, I get it. Your mom is inspiring to you. So what? I don't know your mom.
She's not applying to this school. She's not going to be here.
All right. I'm close to ringing the gong.
Yeah. You've pulled up the mallet.
Yeah. I do. Yeah. This is where on the old school gong show in the 70s, the gong show, when so one of the celebrity judges would go get the gong, and then the other celebrity judges would, if they wanted the performance to keep going, they would be like wrestling.
They'd
me
run
to,
up and
they'd be trying to keep me from doing the gong.
Yeah. So
Are
no
you
one's
wrestling me, Ben?
No,
I don't
no,
think you are.
I was like reaching for it, and then you went and got it. It's like, okay, fair enough, you got it.
So Ben and I are now ceremonially carrying the mallet together across the stage, walking toward the gong.
Next sentence. She spent my childhood teaching in underfunded and struggling middle schools.
You're poor. Don't care. What's that? Keep going.
She keeps dog ears in several books at a time and used to rise early every morning to do yoga with Rodney Yee on the Oxygen Network. That's it. Hit that
Ben
gong.
just rang the gong. Gong. See you later. Thank you for playing. By the way, the next sentence was where I was going to ring the gong.
Okay.
The next sentence, her favorite band is the Indigo Girls. Of all the things I don't give a fuck about, your mom's favorite band. What?
Well, also yoga in the morning on the Oxygen
Rodney
Network?
Yee on the Oxygen Network. Brutal. Just a terrible way to go. I mean, like, really, I can't tell you how bad this is. I'll read a little bit more. She's a philosophical, eccentric, and sugar-coated idealist who always encouraged me to think critically, lovingly, and without limitation. You know what this just sounds like? Does this sound like a serious person?
No.
It sounds like a good person. Like, I don't think you're a bad person, B. And I'm not even saying that you're not a serious person. But if the only thing I know about you is all this, it's like, okay, so you got like kind of a hippie mom, and you think that it's a good use of your limited time here.
Time. Yeah.
You think it's a good use of my time to read about your mom doing yoga and listening to the Indigo Girls. And you think that this makes me excited about admitting you to my law school.
Well, and then you're going in this direction of philosophical, eccentric, and sugar-coated idealist.
Hey,
What?
surely it's going to get better in the next paragraph, right?
Now it's about her father.
Yeah. And it's the whole paragraph, which even gets to his favorite band.
Ah, geez. Pearl Jam. Okay.
What are you talking about, B? What are you doing? Like, who are you? How old are you? What? Wow. Okay. Thank you for playing. If you would like to participate in our Personal Statement Gong Show, that's the type of feedback you're going to get. And so if you don't find that type of feedback helpful, then please don't write in. But if you want us to be brutally honest, it's just not putting your best foot forward. I'm sorry. Anyway, you can find us on our website is probably the best way, thinkinglsat.com. You can also hit us up on any of the socials, and you could probably figure out how to submit that way.
All right.
Greta, still holding the record at 10 lines.
Probably back when we were more sympathetic, too. Might be a skewed scale. Who knows?
As we've started to read personal statements again on the show,
yeah,
we're going to be getting less and less patient for this type of bullshit. Yeah, it is true. Word of the week.
Word of the week. Let's do it. This is coming from Demon Student Alex, who I guess sent it in from Test 8.
I'm going to attempt a pronunciation as Amanuensis.
Okay.
From Test 8, Passage 3, it said, readers of African-American autobiography have too readily accepted the presumption of these editors that experiential facts recounted orally could be recorded and sorted by an amanuensis -editor.
Huh?
Well, I think we would probably need more context here to like really know what we were talking about. But
yep.
Is this that passage that is talking about the autobiography that was actually transcribed by another person?
I think so. Yeah.
Because it does say experiential facts recounted orally could be recorded and sorted by an amanuensis editor.
So,
I think the amanuensis is maybe kind of like a court reporter.
Someone who hears things orally and can, in some reasonable or rational way, put them in writing.
Yeah. Just transcribe, a scribe, I would say.
Okay.
All right. Looking it up here on Cambridge Dictionary, an amanuensis, I'm going to hit the little sound. Amanuensis.
Amanuensis. Okay.
Amanuensis. An amanuensis is a person whose job it is to write down what another person says or to copy what another person has written. Yeah. And one of the synonyms is scribe.
Okay. Got it.
If you'd like to catch up on all of our words of the week, you can go to lsat.link/wow. There's like 100 plus of those words of the week. Be LSAT famous, ask us questions, or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on the socials at LSAT Demon. If you have questions about LSAT Demon, you can email our amazing help team. That's help@lsatdemon.com. Please check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 511 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.